The warning came on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. Not that anyone in the conclave hall cared about Earth's old calendar anymore. Humans had been gone for 300 years. The holographic display flickered to life above the circular chamber, where representatives from 47 species gathered. What they saw made their blood run cold, regardless of whether that blood was red, blue, or liquid methane. A star system simply stopped existing. One moment, the sensors showed the Pelion system with its 6 planets and bustling trade stations. The next moment, there was nothing. Not debris, not radiation, not even empty space. Just a hole in reality that hurt to look at. Impossible, muttered High Chancellor Vexnor, his scales turning pale gray with fear. Our sensors must be malfunctioning. But the sensors were not broken. Over the next 72 hours, 3 more systems vanished. 12 billion souls gone in the blink of an eye. The conclave, which had maintained peace through endless discussions and careful negotiations for centuries, suddenly faced something that did not care about their laws. The enemy had no ships. No weapons that could be detected. They simply appeared at the edges of systems, tearing holes between dimensions and consumed everything. Matter, energy, even light itself got pulled into the rifts and disappeared forever. The Archon Empire sent their ceremonial fleet to investigate. The ships were beautiful, decorated with gold and precious gems, meant to inspire awe during parades and diplomatic visits. They had not fired their weapons in actual combat for 200 years. The fleet never came back. In the libraries deep beneath the conclave hall, old scholars searched through ancient texts. One of them, a frail Mentari named Jaspek, found something in records so old they were written on actual paper. His 3 hands shook as he read. "The Forgotten," he whispered. "They were here before, millions of years ago." The text told of entities that existed between dimensions, neither fully in one reality nor another. The ancient civilizations had fought them in a war that lasted 1,000 years. In the end, they did not destroy the Forgotten. They could not. Instead, they sealed them away using technology that no longer existed. The seals were breaking. High Chancellor Vexnor called an emergency session. Every species sent their finest military minds. They reviewed battle strategies. They calculated firing solutions. They designed new weapons. Everything looked perfect on paper. Then they tested their plans against the Forgotten. The Solian Defense Fleet engaged the enemy at the Corval system. They were the Conclave's most advanced military force, with shields that could withstand a supernova and weapons that could crack planets. The battle lasted 18 minutes. Only one ship escaped to tell the story. The pilot, a young Solian named Kresh, stumbled into the conclave hall still wearing his burned flight suit. His eyes were wide with trauma. "They are not alive," he said. "They are not dead. They just are. Our weapons pass through them like shooting at shadows. But their touch is solid. It tears our ships apart. It pulls our people into darkness." I heard them screaming even after they disappeared. The chamber fell silent. For 300 years, the conclave had enjoyed peace. Real, genuine peace. Wars were ancient history. Conflicts got resolved through dialogue. The worst violence most citizens ever saw was in historical dramas. They had no warriors, no soldiers, only peacekeepers who broke up the occasional bar fight. The bureaucrats looked at each other with growing panic. Another system vanished, then another. The Forgotten were accelerating their harvest. "We need help," someone said quietly. "From whom?" Vexnor asked. "We are the conclave. We are the civilized galaxy. There is no one else." The chamber filled with uncomfortable silence. Everyone thought the same thing, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Finally, Ambassador Kelvesh stood. He was an Archon, tall and proud, with purple skin and 4 arms that marked him as nobility. His family had ruled star systems for 10,000 years. He had personally voted to exile humanity 3 centuries ago. "There are the humans," he said, each word tasting like poison in his mouth. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Humans were dangerous, unpredictable. They refused to follow proper procedures. They had too much emotion, too much chaos. They changed too quickly. They loved and hated with equal intensity. They were artists and warriors, poets and destroyers. "The galaxy was better without them, are we?" Kelvesh asked, his voice cutting through the noise. "Better? Look at our screens. 8 systems gone, 15 billion dead, and we cannot stop it. We do not even know how to hurt them. Another system winked out of existence. The humans were warriors, Kelvesh continued. We hated them for it. We called them savage, uncivilized. We said they glorified violence. We voted to send them away because we feared what they represented. But now we need exactly what we cast aside. High Chancellor Vexnor closed his eyes. His career was built on maintaining the Conclave's purity, on keeping chaos away from civilized space, on ensuring that species like humanity stayed far from decent society. Send a delegation, he finally ordered. Find the humans, if they still exist. Ask them to help us, and if they refuse, someone asked. Vexnor looked at the holographic display showing the spreading darkness consuming his galaxy. Then we are already dead. We just do not know it yet. The vote passed. 3 ships would journey to the dead zone, the empty region of space beyond the outer rim where humanity had been exiled. No one had heard from them in 300 years. No one knew if they had survived. Ambassador Kelvesh volunteered to lead the mission. He did not want to face the species he had wronged, but he was not a coward. If the Conclave must beg for help from those they had insulted, better that those who cast the first stones be the ones to ask forgiveness. The ships prepared to depart. Behind them, another star system vanished into the void. The Forgotten were coming, and the civilized galaxy was helpless before them. The journey to the dead zone took 43 days. Ambassador Kelvesh spent most of that time reviewing old files about humanity. He needed to understand what he was walking into. The records painted a complicated picture. Humans had joined the Conclave only 200 years before their exile. They arrived in ships that barely qualified as spaceworthy, held together with primitive fusion drives and sheer determination. Other species laughed at them. The laughter stopped quickly. Within 50 years, humans had colonies on 30 worlds. Within 100, they were major trading partners. They learned faster than any species in recorded history. They took alien technology and improved it. They asked questions that others considered settled, but it was not their success that led to exile. It was their nature. Humans made friends easily, but they also made enemies. They held grudges for generations. They would die for strangers who showed them kindness. They would cross the galaxy for revenge against those who wronged them. They cried at poetry and laughed at death. They were chaos given form. The Conclave valued order, predictability, calm decision-making. Humans brought none of those things. The final vote happened after a human colony world was attacked by pirates. The Conclave sent diplomats to negotiate. It would take 6 months of careful discussion to resolve the situation peacefully. The humans sent warships. The battle lasted 4 hours. The pirates were destroyed completely. The hostages were recovered. The human commander then violated 36 laws by executing the pirate leaders without trial. They would have done it again, the commander said during her tribunal. We sent a message. Touch our people and we will end you. The Conclave was horrified. Violence was the last resort. Only after all civilized options were exhausted. Humans treated it as just another tool. The vote to exile humanity was nearly unanimous. Kelvesh had argued passionately for it. Humans were too dangerous, too emotional. They would drag the galaxy back into barbarism. Now he was going to beg them for help. The 3 ships crossed into the dead zone. The region was deliberately unmapped. The Conclave wanted no trade, no contact, no reminder that humans existed. Sensors showed dozens of abandoned stations. Old human colonies left behind. The first few showed signs of hardship, failing life support, emergency shelters, evidence of desperate survival. The humans had suffered when the Conclave cut them off from trade and supplies. Then the stations changed. They became more advanced. Alien technology mixed with human designs, but nothing the Conclave recognized. The humans had met others out here in the dark. They had adapted, survived, grown. Where are they? Asked pilot Tamrak, a young Mentari on his first deep space mission. Keep looking, Kelvesh ordered. They found nothing. No active colonies, no ships, no signals. It was like humanity had simply vanished into the void. On the 68th day, they were ready to turn back. They had searched hundreds of systems, found nothing but ghosts. Then they received a message. Unknown vessels. You're in restricted space. State your identity and purpose. The voice was human, female, calm, professional, and it came from a location there. Sensors insisted was empty. This is Ambassador Kelvesh. Of the Galactic Conclave, he said. We seek an audience with human leadership, Islands. Long enough that Kelvesh thought they had been dismissed. Stand by. 3 ships materialized around them, simply appeared out of nothing as if reality bent to allow them through. They were massive, dark, covered in weapons that Kelvesh could not identify. Each one was larger than a conclave dreadnought. You will follow us, the voice said. Any deviation from the flight path will be considered hostile action. They followed. The journey took 6 hours through a series of jump points that should not exist. When they emerged, Kelvesh understood why they could not find humanity. They had not hidden. They had built, the station before them was artificial, larger than most moons. Ships moved in organized patterns, hundreds of them, all military vessels. Defense platforms floated in perfect formation. The entire system hummed with activity. By the ancestors, whispered Tamrek. How many humans are here? This is just one station, the voice answered, clearly hearing their private channel. We have others. The delegation was brought aboard. The interior was clean, efficient, nothing wasted. Human crew members moved with purpose. They wore uniforms, black and gray, with no decorations. Their faces showed no curiosity about their visitors. Just focus. They were led to a conference room. The walls showed tactical displays of the galaxy. Red markers indicated where the Forgotten had struck. The humans had been watching. Fleet Admiral Zhang entered without ceremony. She was shorter than Kelvesh expected. Her hair gray with age, her face lined with scars. She wore the same plain uniform as her crew. But when she looked at him, Kelvesh felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Ambassador Kelvesh, Zhang said, sitting across from him. I know who you are. I have read your speeches arguing for our exile. Very passionate. Very convincing. That was 300 years ago, Kelvesh said, not to us. We keep records. We remember. Zhang pulled up a holographic display. You are here because the Forgotten have returned. You cannot stop them. You need help. Yes, Kelvesh admitted. No point in lying to someone who clearly knew everything already. Why should we? Zhang asked. You threw us away. Called us dangerous, savage, unfit for civilized space. You cut off our trade. Left our colonies to die. Thousands of humans died in the first 10 years because we could not get medical supplies. Kelvesh felt shame burn through him. I did not know it was that bad. You did not care to know. Zhang stood and walked to the window overlooking the station. We survived. We found others out here. Species you never met because they did not fit your narrow definition of civilized. We traded with them. Learned from them. Fought beside them. We are not the desperate refugees who limped away from your borders. I can see that, Kelvesh said. Your technology is beyond ours now. 300 years is a long time, Zhang said, especially when you spend it preparing for the day you might need to fight your way back. Kelvesh felt cold. You were planning revenge? We were planning to survive, Zhang corrected. If that meant going through the conclave, we were ready. But then the Forgotten returned. And we watched, waiting to see what you would do. She turned to face him. You did nothing effective. Your fleets are parades. Your warriors are actors. You forgot how to fight because you forgot there were things worth fighting for. Will you help us? Kelvesh asked. Zhang was quiet for a long moment. We will, but not for you. Not for the conclave. For the billions of civilians who do not deserve to die because their leaders chose pride over preparation. What are your terms? Human command. Our strategies, our methods. No interference, no tribunals, no oversight committees. You accept our help, or you face extinction alone. Kelvesh thought of the High Chancellor, of the conclave bureaucracy. They would hate these terms. Agreed, he said. Zhang smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then we go to war. The human fleet arrived at Terran Prime 6 days after the negotiations concluded. The conclave observers assigned to document the operation could barely believe what they were seeing. 64 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Each ship was dark, angular, built for function rather than beauty. They carried no decorations, no flags, no proud emblems, just weapons. Thousands of weapons. Commander Salas, a Solian military historian invited to observe, recorded his thoughts into his personal log. The humans brought an armada. The conclave would have sent 3 times as many ships, spent weeks positioning them carefully, established supply lines, and held committee meetings to determine the optimal approach. The humans simply arrived ready to fight. Terran Prime was dying. The Forgotten had been feeding on the system for 8 days. The planet's shields were failing. Evacuation ships fled in panic. Conclave defense forces fired uselessly at enemies they could not hurt. Admiral Zhang stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Relentless. Around her, crew members worked in focused silence. No panic, no uncertainty. They had done this before. Status, Zhang ordered. Rift signature detected at 3 locations, reported the tactical officer. Estimate 47 forgotten entities manifested in local space. Conclave forces are retreating. Signal all ships. Battle formation Delta. Launch strike craft. Activate quantum disruptors. The observers did not understand most of those commands. The Conclave had nothing called quantum disruptors. Strike craft in modern warfare were obsolete, or so they thought. What happened next would be studied in military academies for generations. The human ships did not try to shoot the Forgotten directly. Instead, they fired at the space around them, using weapons that twisted reality itself. The Forgotten existed partially in another dimension. The humans were sealing the holes that let them through. "It is working," Salas whispered, watching the tactical display. "They are forcing the Forgotten to become fully physical. Once the entities were locked into normal space, they could be hurt, and the humans had weapons designed for exactly that purpose." The strike craft screamed forward, piloted by artificial intelligences that could think faster than any biological mind. They carried specialized warheads that collapsed dimensional barriers. Each explosion was small, precise, surgical. The Forgotten began to retreat. For the first time since the invasion began, the enemy was pulling back. "Do not let them escape," Zhang ordered. "Pursue and eliminate." The Conclave observers were horrified. The Forgotten were retreating. The civilized response was to let them go, to avoid unnecessary violence. The humans chased them down and destroyed every single one. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, Terran Prime was saved. The planet's shields held. The evacuation completed. 3 million souls survived because the humans arrived. But the Conclave observers were disturbed by what they witnessed. The humans fought with an intensity that seemed almost angry. They took calculated risks that made military sense but seemed reckless. They used artificial intelligence in warfare, something the Conclave had banned centuries ago as too dangerous. Commander Salas requested a meeting with Admiral Zhang after the battle. She received him in her ready room, a small office with only a desk and a few chairs. No decorations, no personal items. "You wish to speak," Zhang said. "Your tactics," Salas began carefully. "They are effective, but also concerning. The artificial intelligences piloting your strike craft, the weapons that damage reality itself, the pursuit of retreating enemies. These methods are brutal," Zhang suggested. "Savage, uncivilized." Salas looked uncomfortable. "The Conclave has rules about warfare, to prevent atrocities, to maintain honor. Honor does not win wars," Zhang said. "We learned that the hard way. When you exiled us, we faced enemies you never knew existed. Pirates who took slaves, alien predators who hunted for sport, rogue machines from dead civilizations. We had to become hard to survive." "But at what cost?" Salas asked. "Do you not fear losing your humanity in the process?" Zhang stood and walked to her window. Outside, repair crews were already working on damaged ships. Medical teams transferred wounded to the hospital vessels. The humans took care of their own. "Watch them," Zhang said, gesturing to the crews. The medics who refused to leave wounded behind. The engineers who worked triple shifts to keep ships running. The pilots who volunteered for missions they knew might kill them. We did not lose our humanity. We refined it. We learned that sometimes you have to be a monster to protect those who cannot protect themselves. She turned back to Salas. "The Conclave spent 300 years in peace. That is admirable. But you forgot that peace is not the natural state of the universe. Peace is something you fight for, something you maintain through strength. You thought you had evolved beyond violence. You just forgot how to be good at it." Salas wanted to argue, but the evidence was everywhere. The humans won in 6 hours what the Conclave could not achieve in 8 days. "Your people are frightened of us," Zhang continued. "I understand that. We are frightening. But that is why you called us. You needed frightening people to face a frightening enemy." Over the next 3 weeks, the human fleet liberated 4 more systems. Each battle was efficient, brutal, and effective. Conclave observers documented everything with growing unease. They watched human soldiers fight with a ferocity that seemed excessive. They saw humans mourn their dead with genuine grief, holding ceremonies for every fallen warrior. They witnessed humans spare enemy combatants who surrendered, providing medical care even to those who tried to kill them moments before. The humans were contradictions. Gentle and violent, honorable and ruthless, compassionate and terrifying. Commander Salas compiled his reports and sent them to the conclave. "The humans are winning," he wrote, "but they are winning in ways that challenge everything we believe about civilized warfare. They use weapons we consider taboo. They make decisions in minutes that we would debate for months. They accept casualties we would find unacceptable, and yet they are also more loyal, more dedicated, and more effective than any force we have fielded." He paused before adding the final line, "I do not know if we should fear what happens when this war is over." Admiral Zhang read the intercepted report and smiled grimly. The conclave was learning what humanity already knew. Sometimes the price of survival was becoming something others feared. The forgotten were learning too. They had never encountered resistance like this. They began adapting their tactics, changing their approach. The easy victories were over. On the flagship Relentless, Admiral Zhang reviewed new intelligence. Her expression grew dark. "They are learning," she told her command staff. "The next battle will not be as simple." She was right. The Forgotten had been testing humanity. Now they were going to fight back. And the humans were about to face an enemy that could match their ferocity with something far worse. Cold, patient intelligence. The war was about to become much more difficult. The trap was perfect. The Kelvar system sent out a distress call. The Forgotten were manifesting, tearing through the outer defenses. 2 billion civilians needed evacuation. Standard procedure. Standard response. Admiral Zhang sent the 3rd and 5th fleets. 28 ships under the command of Rear Admiral Okonkwo, one of humanity's best tactical minds. They jumped into the system ready for a quick strike. The Forgotten were waiting. Rifts opened simultaneously at 16 points. Not the usual gradual manifestation, not the slow feeding process. This was an ambush. Hundreds of entities poured through at once, surrounding the human fleet. "It is a trap." Okonkwo's communication cut off mid-sentence. Zhang watched helplessly from the command center as the tactical display showed her fleet being torn apart. Ships that had survived a dozen battles were ripped open. Crews that had fought together for years died in seconds. The quantum disruptors did nothing. The Forgotten had learned to resist them. The strike craft could not get close. The entities had adapted, creating barriers that destroyed anything that approached. In 18 minutes, both fleets were crippled. 6,000 human warriors died. Another 3,000 were missing, pulled into the dimensional rifts. The survivors limped away, their ships barely functional. The conclave observers who had praised human efficiency fell silent. Commander Salas watched the aftermath, his 3 hearts heavy with grief even for a species he barely knew. Admiral Zhang stood alone in her ready room, staring at the casualty lists. 6,000 names. She had known many of them personally, had promoted some, had trained others. Now they were gone. A message arrived from the conclave. High Chancellor Vexnor requesting immediate communication. Zhang accepted the call, her face expressionless. "Admiral," Vexnor began, "we are sorry for your losses. However, we must discuss the situation. The Forgotten have proven more adaptable than anticipated. Perhaps it is time to consider negotiations." "Negotiations?" Zhang's voice was dangerously quiet. "We could offer them certain sectors, unpopulated space. Allow them to exist without conflict." "They consume everything," Zhang said. "There is no coexistence, no compromise." "Then perhaps," Vexnor said carefully, "it is time for humanity to withdraw. You have done enough, sacrificed enough. Let us handle this diplomatically." Zhang laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "You want to talk to them? They just killed 6,000 of my people, and you want to have a discussion?" "Violence has failed," Vexnor said. "We must try another way." Zhang terminated the call. She knew what was happening. The conclave was looking for an exit, a way to save themselves without continuing the fight. They would sacrifice systems, sacrifice species, anything to maintain their comfortable existence. But it was worse than cowardice. Deep in the intelligence networks, human analysts had found something disturbing: communications between certain conclave members and unknown parties. movements of resources that did not match official records. Captain Torres, head of human intelligence, brought the evidence to Zhang personally. There is a faction within the conclave, Torres reported. They call themselves the Purists. They believe the Forgotten are a natural cleansing force, that the galaxy has become weak with too many species, too much chaos. They think if they let the Forgotten feed on the troublesome civilizations, they will eventually leave. They are helping the enemy? Zhang asked, her voice deadly calm. Not directly, but they are sabotaging defense efforts, delaying reinforcements, leaking intelligence about our movements. Torres pulled up a file. The trap at Kelvar. The Forgotten knew we were coming because someone told them. Zhang felt rage like she had not experienced in decades. Her people died because someone betrayed them. Someone thought they could play games with cosmic horrors and come out ahead. Identify them, Zhang ordered. Find every single purist. Get proof. Within 48 hours, human intelligence had names, locations, and evidence. 23 high-ranking conclave officials. 14 military officers. Dozens of civilian conspirators, all working to ensure the Forgotten succeeded. Zhang took the evidence to Ambassador Kelvesh, who had remained with the human fleet after the initial negotiations. He had been watching humanity fight, watching them die, and something inside him had changed. This cannot be true, Kelvesh said, reading the reports. But the evidence was overwhelming. Communications, financial transfers, sabotage supply shipments. What will you do? He asked Zhang. I should withdraw, Zhang said. Take my people and leave. Let the conclave burn for its betrayal. But you will not, Kelvesh said. It was not a question. No, Zhang admitted. Because there are billions of innocent people. Civilians who have no idea their leaders are using them as bait. Children who do not deserve to die because adults made selfish choices. She pulled up a holographic display showing the full scope of the Forgotten's advance. 40 systems consumed, 60 billion dead, and spreading. We will continue to fight, Zhang said. But not for the conclave. For the people they have failed. Kelvesh felt shame burn through him again. 300 years ago, he had called humans savage, uncivilized, unfit for decent society. Now he watched them choose to protect the civilization that had rejected them. I will help you, Kelvesh said. I cannot undo my past mistakes, but I can stand with you now. Zhang nodded. Then help me find the purists. Quietly. If they know we are coming, they will hide. Over the next week, human special forces and a small group of loyal conclave security personnel conducted simultaneous raids across 9 systems. They arrested the conspirators before they could destroy evidence or warn each other. The trials were brief. The evidence was undeniable. 23 officials who had betrayed their own people for an ideology that made no sense. The conclave wanted to handle it internally. Quiet trials, reassignments, nothing that would embarrass the government. Zhang made it public. She broadcast the evidence across the entire conclave communication network. Every citizen saw the names, the crimes, the betrayal. The reaction was explosive. Protests erupted on a dozen worlds. The High Chancellor was forced to resign. The conclave government collapsed into chaos just as the war reached its critical phase. But something else happened too. Young conclave citizens, horrified by what their leaders had done, began volunteering for the defense forces. They wanted to fight alongside the humans. To prove that not everyone in the conclave was corrupt, Admiral Zhang reviewed the applications. Thousands of them. Idealistic youth who had never held a weapon but wanted to make a difference. This is foolish, Commander Torres said. They will slow us down, get themselves killed. Probably, Zhang agreed. But we need to give them the chance. Because if we do not, the conclave has no future worth saving. She approved 500 volunteers for basic training. They would learn human tactics, human discipline, and human determination. Some would die, but others would return home as warriors, bringing those lessons with them. Meanwhile, human scientists made a breakthrough. Dr. Amari, a quantum physicist, discovered something in the data from the Kelvar battle. The Forgotten have an anchor point, she explained to Zhang. A place in real space where they are most strongly connected to our dimension. If we could find it and sever that connection, we could end the invasion. Where is it? Zhang asked. Amari pulled up a star chart. The location was deep in Forgotten-controlled space, surrounded by rifts, defended by hundreds of entities. It is a suicide mission, Zhang said. Yes, Amari agreed. But it is the only way to win. Zhang looked at the location, calculating odds, considering options. Then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had made a terrible decision and would live with the consequences. Then we go, she said. Prepare the fleet. We are going to end this. She sent out the call to all human forces and their new conclave volunteers. They were going to strike at the heart of the enemy. Many would not return. Every single person volunteered, because that was what humans did. They saw impossible odds and charged forward anyway. They knew they might die, but they also knew someone had to try. The conclave observers documented everything. They were finally beginning to understand what made humanity special. Not their technology, not their tactics, but their willingness to sacrifice everything for others, even for people who did not deserve it. The assault fleet gathered at the edge of forgotten space. 41 human warships, 3 conclave dreadnoughts crewed by volunteers, 50,000 warriors preparing for a battle most would not survive. Admiral Zhang addressed them all via broadcast. Her image appeared on every screen and every ship. We are about to attack the enemy's stronghold, she said simply. The scientists believe there is an anchor point that connects the forgotten to our dimension. If we destroy it, we end the invasion. If we fail, we die and the war continues. She paused, looking directly at the camera. I will not lie to you. The odds are terrible. We will lose ships. We will lose friends. Some of you will not see tomorrow. But if we succeed, we save billions. We give the galaxy a future. On the conclave dreadnought Unity, Ambassador Kelvesh stood among young volunteers from a dozen species. He had insisted on joining the assault. If humanity could sacrifice for those who had wronged them, he could at least die trying to make amends. Beside him stood a young Archon named Velnis, barely old enough to serve. Ambassador, are you frightened? The youth asked. Terrified, Kelvesh admitted, but that is acceptable. Fear means you understand the stakes. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it. The fleet jumped into enemy territory. Immediately, alarms screamed. Rifts opened on all sides. The Forgotten were ready. All ships engage defensive formation, Zhang ordered. Strike craft clear a path. Capital ships focus fire on the anchor coordinates. What followed was chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. The Forgotten swarmed them with hundreds of entities. Human ships fired their quantum disruptors not to damage the enemy, but to stabilize reality itself, creating pockets where the Forgotten could not phase out of normal space. Conclave volunteers who had trained for only weeks fought alongside human veterans. They made mistakes, panicked, sometimes died within seconds, but others learned fast. They adapted. They survived. On the Unity, Kelvesh watched a young Mentari volunteer named Jalis take the weapons station after the primary gunner was killed. The youth was shaking so badly he could barely hold the controls, but he kept firing, kept fighting. You are doing well, Kelvesh encouraged him. I am terrified, Jalis admitted. Then you are in good company, Kelvesh said, firing his own station's weapons at targets he barely understood. The fleet pushed deeper. They lost ships. The destroyer Defiant took a direct hit and broke apart, taking 300 souls with it. The cruiser Vengeful rammed a rift to save a damaged transport, disappearing into dimensional space forever. But they kept advancing. Kept fighting. Every meter paid for in blood and sacrifice. Dr. Amari worked frantically in the science vessel Newton, trying to pinpoint the exact location of the anchor. There, she finally shouted. I have it. Sending coordinates now. The location was a tear in space itself, a wound in reality that pulsed with dark energy. It was heavily defended by the largest forgotten entities anyone had ever seen. All ships concentrate fire on those coordinates, Zhang ordered. Everything we have. The fleet unleashed every weapon, missiles, energy beams, quantum disruptors, dimensional collapse bombs. The space around the anchor point became a storm of destruction. The Forgotten fought back desperately. They understood what humanity was trying to do. 3 more human ships died. A conclave dreadnought lost all power and drifted helplessly. But the anchor was weakening. Then sensors detected something new. A presence emerging from the anchor point. Not an entity. Something bigger. Something that felt old and vast and impossibly alien. What is that? Someone whispered. The presence spoke. Not in words, in concepts that appeared directly in every mind simultaneously. Stop. The fleet hesitated. Even Zhang felt the compulsion to cease fire. The presence was overwhelming. We mean you no harm, Zhang broadcast. But you cannot stay. You are destroying our galaxy. Images flooded every mind. The forgotten story. They were refugees. Their dimension was dying, consumed by something worse than anything the current galaxy had ever faced. They fled into this reality, but their very existence was toxic to normal spacetime. They were not evil. They were desperate. And desperate beings do terrible things to survive. There must be another way, Zhang said. She did not know if the presence could understand. Did not know if it cared more images. The forgotten showing their attempts to find other solutions. Everyone had failed. This was their only option. Consume or die. No, Zhang said. That is not the only option. That is just the easiest one. She pulled up data from her science teams. We can create a contained dimensional pocket. A stable space between dimensions where your people can exist without harming ours. It will take technology we barely understand. It might fail. It might kill us trying. But it is a possibility. The presence was silent, processing, considering. Why would you help us? The concept thought was confused. We killed your people, consumed your worlds. Because you are refugees, Zhang said simply. Because you are parents trying to save your children. Because you are desperate, not evil. Because maybe, just maybe, there is a better way than endless war. She felt the presence examining her mind, reading her memories, seeing humanity's own history of desperate survival, of exile, of 300 years fighting in the dark, you understand? The presence realized. We understand, Zhang confirmed. The forgotten entities stopped attacking. The rift stabilized. The presence at the anchor point pulled back its defenses. We will try your solution, it said. But if it fails, we must continue feeding. We will not let our children die. If it fails, Zhang said, we will find another way, together. Over the next 6 months, human scientists worked alongside Conclave researchers and, incredibly, with representatives of the forgotten themselves, they built a dimensional pocket using technology that should not exist, theories that were barely tested, and desperate hope. It worked, barely, but it worked. The forgotten had a new home. Not perfect, not ideal, but stable, contained. A place where they could exist without destroying others. The invasion ended not with extermination, but with an impossible peace. The Conclave tried to celebrate humanity as heroes. They wanted parades, medals, a formal apology and invitation to rejoin. Admiral Zhang declined. We did not fight for you, she told High Chancellor Tevrix, who had replaced Vexnor. We fought for the innocent, and we will continue to do so. Humanity established the Independent Federation. Any species could join if they met one requirement: equality. No castes, no second-class citizens. No exile for being different. Within 2 years, 47 species applied. 12 were accepted, including, to everyone's surprise, the Archon homeworld. Ambassador Kelvesh led the Archon delegation. He was old now, tired but determined. We were wrong, he told the Human Council. 300 years ago we cast you away because you frightened us. Because you challenged our comfortable certainties. We called it civilization, but it was just cowardice. Many of our people died because of that choice, Admiral Zhang said. She was older too now. Her gray hair turned white, but her eyes still sharp. I know, Kelvesh said. I carry that guilt every day. I cannot undo the past, but I can try to build a better future. Zhang considered him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Welcome to the Federation, Ambassador. Let us build that future together. On the observation deck of the new Federation station, Zhang stood watching construction, ships being built. Not warships this time. Colony vessels, exploration craft, medical frigates, tools for peace. Commander Torres joined her. Do you think it will last? He asked. The peace? No, Zhang said honestly. There will be other threats, other wars. The universe is not a peaceful place. Then why bother? Torres asked. Because peace is not a destination, Zhang explained. It is a constant effort. Something you build and maintain and fight for every single day. The Conclave thought they had achieved eternal peace. They were wrong. Peace is not something you achieve. It is something you practice. She pointed to the ships under construction. We will keep building. Keep preparing. Keep watching for the next threat. And when it comes, we will be ready. Not because we love war, but because we love what we are protecting. And if the Conclave falls back into old habits? Torres asked. If they forget what we did? Zhang smiled. Then we will be here to remind them. We are not going anywhere. Never again. Far out in the dimensional pocket, the Forgotten settled into their new home. It was not perfect, but it was stable. Their children would survive. And sometimes, when the barriers thinned, they sent messages to the humans. Thank you. Not in words. In the universal language of gratitude, from one species of survivors to another, and in the vastness of space on a small station orbiting a young star, former enemies worked together to build something better. Not perfect, not ideal, but better, because that was what humanity brought to the galaxy, not just the ability to fight, but the stubborn, foolish, beautiful belief that things could always be better. That peace was worth fighting for, that even monsters could be reasoned with if you tried. The angry humans had returned when the Forgotten returned to fight. And they taught the galaxy that sometimes the greatest victory is not destroying your enemy, but finding a way for everyone to survive. Admiral Zhang watched the stars and smiled. Humanity was home, not in the conclave, not in comfortable acceptance, but in the difficult, messy, beautiful work of building a galaxy worth living in, and that was exactly where they belonged.